NFL playoffs are upon us with Super Wildcard Weekend kicking off on Saturday. Here's a look at the NFC matchups. The Seahawks snuck in as the 7th seed and will play their divisional foe, the 49ers. The Giants will clash with the Vikings. Minnesota beat New York 27-24 in Week 16 on a 61-yard field goal as time expired. The 4-5 matchup takes us to Tampa, where it's Tom Brady and the Bucs against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. Brady is 7-0 in his career against Dallas. To help us get our minds and our pocketbooks right ahead of Super Wildcard Weekend, we welcome in the two-time Super Bowl champ and the man who is not afraid to buy points when needed, our friend Bryant McFadden. B-Mac, this is a mock segment, so you already know what we're going to start with. We're starting with the Seahawks at the Niners. The NFC West champs are laying 9.5 against their bitter rival. Early money favoring SF with 63% of wagers. However, the real darling of the betting public is the under 43. That's garnering a whopping 89% of early money. Which way are you leaning?
I'm leaning with the total as well. I love the under in this particular game. When you look at two teams that know each other extremely well, this will be the third time the Seahawks and the 49ers face off. The first two times, of course, San Francisco took care of their business, but defensively is why I love the under in this spot. With the 49ers defense, they've had a lot of success, Katie, as you know, being a 49ers fan. Against the Seahawks in 2 meetings, right? They only surrendered 13 points, and then they surrendered 7 points in the final meeting. In the first meeting was 7, and of course the final meeting was 13. So when you look at their defense, they've had a lot of success against Geno Smith. And then you look at Brock Purdy, right? He's been the darling, to say the least, in the NFL when you talk about quarterback play, but he hasn't really done a lot. Granted, he doesn't need to do a lot based on what they have surrounding him. It's about running the football, utilizing the run to open up things in the play action game, and then just taking aggressive shots when you need to take aggressive shots. So I can easily see this ball game being a 21-10 type affair, maybe 24-7, but I don't see them surpassing 43, so I'm attacking the under as well.
I love that, and I love that you didn't take Seattle in this one. All right, next up, Giants at Vikings. Minnesota is the only team in NFL history to have 12-plus wins and a negative score differential in a season, leaving many NFL fans and bettors alike questioning if this team can actually win in the playoffs. Books are only favoring Minnesota the standard home field advantage of 3 points. Who covers, B-Mac, the Vikes or the G-Men?
The Vikes cover. Just the home atmosphere is huge for Minnesota. I understand they've been a bit up and down in regards to style of play. Two things with Minnesota we know for sure, Katie, it seems to be if they win a ball game, they do so in dramatic fashion. If they lose a ball game, they get totally blown out. I don't see them getting blown out by the New York Giants. I see this being a close-scoring game. So give me the Minnesota Vikings lane 3, but I will advise this. The first time these two teams faced off, which was a few weeks ago, I took Minnesota, but Katie, you know what I did? If I'm not mistaken, I think that line was like 3. I got it under 3. So, of course, that game-winning field goal by Joseph allowed me to walk to the gate to get my winning ticket and cash out. So I would advise you guys, I like Minnesota in this spot. If you really like Minnesota, buy it down to 2.5. I think that is the ideal number with these two teams, especially if you expect to see a close-scoring game. But with them being at home, I like Minnesota, but I'm buying it down to 2.5.
I love that. And I do think this is a good spot to buy the hook. I agree with you on this one, especially since both teams were, I think, number 1 and number 2 with single possession games this season. So buying it at that key, under the key number of 3, I think is a really good idea. Now for the Monday night game, the Cowboys head to Tampa Bay to face Tom Brady and the Bucs. Dallas spooked the betting market this weekend with their 26-6 loss against Sam Howell. Sam Howell, who led the Commanders to the tune of 85% of the handle on the Buccaneers. Again, early leans, but still, that's a big part of the handle. Cowboys are 2.5-point road chalk. 45 is the total. How do you see it?
I'm staying away from either side. I don't trust either team in regards to covering the spread, but I do love the total. I love the under. 45 in the hook seems to be a bit much when you talk about Tampa's offense. One thing about Tom Brady, you mentioned the success we saw from Washington with Sam Howell. Sam Howell made things happen with his legs. He bought time in the pocket. He was involved in the running game, had a huge touchdown as well. You're not going to get the same production from Tom Brady. Tom Brady wants to stand in the pocket. Tom Brady should stand in the pocket because he's not a athletic quarterback. But if you're going to stand in the pocket against Dallas Cowboys and their defense, they're going to put pressure on you. And then when you transition to the offensive woes for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, for whatever reason, Katie, he's not seeing the football field well. So if you want to limit the turnovers that we've seen from Dak Prescott over the last few weeks, the best way to do so is what? Take the football out of his hands and put it in Pollard and Elliott's hands and just allow those guys to run the football. They should have a little success running the football. I think that will be the storyline and the mentality for the Cowboys on the offensive end, which is great if you're taking the total, which is the under, because guess what? That utilizes the clock. So I like the under in this spot because I don't trust either offense to be able to generate enough success to surpass this total that's set at 45 and a hook.
I love it. Let's go ahead and recap those picks for the NFC wild card. BMAC is relying on what he knows best, and that is defense, and locking in a couple unders for Seattle at SF, as well as the Cowboys at Bucks. He is confident in the Vikings, however, to cover, laying that field goal against the Giants. Here's a look at the AFC wildcard matchups. 2 of the 3 games are between divisional opponents. The Dolphins and Bills split their first 2 meetings of the regular season, both games decided by less than 3 points. Bengals will host the Ravens for the 2nd week in a row, and regular season rematch between the Chargers and the Jags. Jacksonville beat LA by 28 points back in week 3. Welcoming back in Bryant McFadden to now talk AFC for the wild card games, starting with the Pick'em matchup, the first ever postseason meeting between the Chargers and the Jags. This one's tricky to handicap, though it should be a fun battle between Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. Both will be the youngest quarterbacks to start a playoff game with their respective franchises in the history of both franchises. BMAC, which way are you leaning in this Pick'em?
That's a Pick'em. I think that's the right thing to do in regards to the betting spot. Both teams have an opportunity to win this ball game, but who do you trust more, right? This will be the second meeting between the Jags and the Chargers. Now, in the first meeting, don't take a lot away from that ball game because remember, you didn't have Keenan Allen for the Chargers. Mike Williams wasn't really involved. Trevor Lawrence had a huge day. Defensively, they suffocated the Chargers offense, and they went off to have a huge opportunity to win a ball game week 3. Now, when you transition to both ball clubs, both teams are healthier. Both quarterbacks have really performed real good football, productive, smart. But I like Jacksonville in regards to this game, and here's why. I trust Doug Peterson more than I trust Brandon Staley. I think that is going to be the deciding factor in who wins this ball game. And when you factor in the home field advantage. I really like Jacksonville because Doug Peterson has a lot of playoff experience. He's done a wonderful job with his young quarterback and his offense. And we know, Katie, Brandon Staley will have an oh no moment at some point in time in this ball game. Oh no, what are you doing? He does it all the time. I think that will pave the way for a huge victory for Jacksonville to be able to advance to the second round. So I love Jacksonville when you talk about Trevor Lawrence under Doug Peterson playing at home, but this is solely about Brandon Staley doing something he has no business doing, coaching the game like it's a video game that will pave the way for Jacksonville, Duval, to get a huge win in this pick'em type situation in regards to this matchup.
Hard to argue with this coaching matchup. You definitely don't want an oh no moment, and you're right, Staley is known for one of those per game. Okay, the number 7 Dolphins head back to Orchard Park to square off against the number 2 Bills. Tua has not yet been cleared for any football activity. BMAC, the last time that we talked about this matchup during the regular season, you noted that the Dolphins do not swim well in the snow, and you took the under. The Bills are laying 9.5, the total at an even 46. Are you eyeing this under again?
Katie, you know I am. You know how I'm thinking with this matchup. Number one, I don't know if the starting quarterback is going to play for the Miami Dolphins. Number 2, I don't know if the backup quarterback is going to play for the Miami Dolphins in Teddy Bridgewater. So if you're talking about relying on your third-string quarterback on the road in a playoff game against the Buffalo Bills defense, I don't expect to see a lot of points. So we have to wait and see. But making this pick right now, I don't believe Tua Tagovailoa will play. So if you're talking about the backup quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater or the third stringer, there are points for the Dolphins will be very, very difficult to come by. So give me the under, which is set at 46 right now. We know what the Bills will do offensively, but defensively, they're going to make things difficult for the Miami Dolphins. And if you're a Miami Dolphins fan, you want to see them run the football because remember the last time they were up there, they ran the football well. They just it got away from the running game a little too early for me, but they got to find a way to run the football. And you know when you run the football, that clock is moving. But 46 right now, this total seems to be a bit high. I'm going to try it. I'm going to pay to see it. Give me the under because right now the quarterback situation is going everywhere in regards to who might be this guy or who might not play. So give me the under.
All right, I like the under on that one. I'm also leaning towards the Bills. I know it's a heavy spread at 9.5, but it seems like Buffalo has like divine intervention on their side right now. It was an incredible game, and everyone is a horse behind Damar Hamlin, so we'll have to see what happens there. Okay, so Baltimore, 7-point dogs against the Bengals. However, this line suggests that Lamar Jackson is going to play. The Ravens were 11.5-point dogs with Tyler Huntley against Cincy in Week 18. What's your lean here, knowing that it seems like Lamar may play?
Even though Lamar Jackson, it seems like he will play, I like Cincinnati laying 7 points. Cincinnati won by double digits this past Sunday. Joe Burrow had a bad game, given his standards. A bad game, just roughly over 200 yards throwing, 1 passing touchdown, completed under 60% of his passes. That's not a Joe Burrow-like game. They still won by double digits. Granted, it played against a third-string quarterback defensively, but in regards to their offense, this is what this team do. They score points. I think they will have a better outing in this playoff matchup at home, even with Lamar Jackson back. We haven't seen Lamar Jackson play in such a long time, so one would think Russ will show up at some point in time, especially in the beginning of this ball game. Secondly, how healthy will Lamar Jackson be? Because if he's not 100% Lamar Jackson, 90% or 85%, we don't know if we're going to see him moving around like he's been moving around throughout his professional career, which will make this offense a little different than what we've seen in years past with Lamar Jackson under the center. So I like Cincinnati, and like I've been saying for the last few weeks, Cincinnati, they're one of the scariest teams in the AFC. Over the last few weeks, they've been doing a great job in covering for all the bettors that have put money on them. I'm not turning my back on the Bengals just yet. Give me Cincinnati laying 7 points, even if Lamar Jackson is returning to the lineup.
Yeah, health is wealth, especially with quarterbacks in the playoffs. One more look at those AFC early leans. BMAC is going Bengals and Jags, as well as the under 46 in the Finns and the Bills game. It's parlay time. We need a super wild parlay for Super Wild Card Weekend. How crazy are we getting here, BMAC?
I'm not getting crazy. You know, it's Tuesday. It's Four Horsemen Tuesday, as I like to call it. But I got a nice four-legger for you guys that I really believe in. And I believe it will cash in. Number one, let's start with the under with the Seahawks and the 49ers. I talked about how this matchup, when you look at the two most recent matchups, 49ers defensively didn't allow a lot of points. I think that will continue in this play for them as well. Give me the Vikings. Remember, I said, want to get real comfortable with the Vikings, buy it down to 2.5. I have them in the parlay as well. I have the Cincinnati Bengals covering their spread against the Baltimore Ravens. And I have the under in the Tampa Bay Dallas game. The under is set at 45 and a hook. That's my four-legger. And like I said, I'm extremely high on this parlay. Can't wait for it to cash in.
BMAC, you are the best. Thank you always for your time, and I can't wait for this to cash as well. Let's take one more look at the Super Wildcard Weekend parlay. BMAC is going Vikings and Bengals to cover the spread, as well as a couple unders in the Hawks and Niners and Cowboys and Bucks. Odds to hit plus 1228. He said he wasn't getting crazy, but that's a wild odds boost there. For more BMAC, be sure to check out his podcast, All Things Covered, alongside All-Pro Vikings cornerback Patrick Peterson. The guys give a unique perspective into everything NFL and are even joined by some of the biggest names in sports. Video episodes also available on their YouTube channel, All Things Covered Podcast. Download and subscribe today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.